Particularly the AOE roster. As we get into the draft, though, I'm sure that they'll be given a good old lookout to their former support. In the meantime, AOE
Mhm.
certainly have checked out at least the match histories from yesterday, and anybody will know that TSM was prioritizing that Renekton, and it was doing really well.
Yeah, and that Renekton is a flex pick as well. Did go mid in the second game here, so definitely something they do want to take out to make sure that it doesn't catch them by surprise in a flex here. I think Varus just a very solid ban to take out in general, but Kha'Zix here, that's a nod of respect to Infectrix because that's not something we see too much of here in PG unless you're Cyber.
And TSM are given a little bit of nod of respect of their own, taking away the Lee Sin that was also a flex between lanes yesterday. So
Mhm.
a lot of these AD bruisers that I like seeing removed from the game. It's too much flexibility, too much free stuff all at once. That Tristana though is interesting.
Yeah, because Sketch Dreams played Tristana both the games yesterday, and
Hmm.
I remember we were talking before this, Dia. I'm personally not quite sure where I went rank Sketch Dreams. Sketch Dream on paper is a very strong player, but I didn't get to see them take over the game yesterday here. So now on a different ADC, let's see how they do perform.
Yeah, and I think it'll be an interesting test, especially because TSM isn't forced onto a different ADC. They're running back with that Kaisa, and we know that they can perform on it, or at least they did yesterday. With the
Mhm.
Udyr as well to back it up, AoE should be comfortable going into this sort of playstyle. It's almost exactly the same thing that EGP threw at them yesterday, but this time piloted by a team that did end up winning their matchup and are already focused on removing AoE's comfort.
And once again, without that Tristana, their Sketch Dreams might not have quite as good a matchup here. Picking up the Jinx and Thresh here, of course, great skilling here, but a bit of a rougher lane into that Kai'Sa. Now, they do have the Rumble jungle picked up as well, or most likely jungle can be flexed around. And one thing I have noticed here is that Rumble has fallen off in priority, and I think teams have not
Mhm.
been playing with Rumble quite appropriately here. I do think Rumble excels best when you've got a little bit of setup, when you've got some of that AoE lockdown to prolong that equalizer time right now. Jinx and Thresh aren't really what I'd consider the best enablers of this Rumble pick.
And they're not going to be doing too well in terms of enabling just his jungle pressure at all because they're going into a Kaisa Nautilus. TSM, they've got a very high pressure bot lane, I think is the word that I'm going to choose to use here because Nautilus on his own is already going to cause a lot of problems for Jinx.
Yeah, and that's without any sort of top or mid pressure that could potentially come down as well here. And TSM Academy, pardon me, Amateur will have the last pick here on the red side. I'm curious to see whether they hold that for the top lane because we did see that Faisal can be exploited a little bit yesterday. Whereas if you save the mid last pick for Dark Wings here, honestly, I'm not 100% sure that Doxa will be able to win out against Dark Wings. Doxa did amazingly well yesterday, and I think was key to how they did manage to beat out Revival. But Dark Wings, personally, I think is a bit better than Sudsy here.
Well, we're gonna get that tested for sure, and it would be a really nice edge for AOE to have because I'm thrown specifically back to game two against EGP yesterday, and it was in that game that Darkwings really showed his stuff, finding solo kills that honestly brought them back into a game that otherwise was being very harsh towards them. AoE here through that mid lane have the chance to run a game. We've seen it before, and now if TSM can shut that down, I think it is a really good point of pressure for them. But like you say, there are question marks
Very.
around whether they'll be able to do it.
Yeah, and I love this Zoe pickup coming through from
Of
the
course you
side
do.
of Doxa here. Yeah, I just think Zoe's a broken champion in general here. The Sleepy Trouble Bubble and just the paddle star damage that comes out in the early to mid game is just absolutely nutty. And yesterday as well, Doxa finding those picks with that Sleepy Trouble Bubble really helped them to speed up the mid game, get the objectives here. There weren't as many fights because of the way they people were getting picked off before that. But picking it early does mean that we do see a potential counter pick upcoming. Viego here. I thought Viego wasn't even enabled with all the bugs he has right now.
Viego, please. This is an exciting pick for sure. I have not had the opportunity to cast as much of this champion as I would like, given how ridiculously strong he is, and I think that it's well because of what you say that it's a rather buggy selection. But it's going to be going into the mid lane against that Zoe, and
Oh.
honestly, this is a nice matchup.
Honestly, this is a matchup I haven't seen, and I'm not sure how it goes. I do know that Viego generally is considered very strong right now, scales amazingly well, has a ton of damage, and the ultimate allows you to dodge out so many abilities as well. Even if you're playing from behind, as long as your team is doing well and they can find a great pick, you can definitely pop off here. So Viego very strong. I'm scared though into a Zoe here. I feel like the burst damage coming out from Zoe, if Viego has to constantly be dodging everything, if you get hit by anything there, it's you kind of lose that trade.
And now he's got to contend with another busted bruiser. The Gwen gets locked in
Mhm.
last for TSM, I assume, going up into that top lane against the
Mhm.
Scion. And that is a really nice matchup that they've already got secured because Gwen is a monster, not just in the lane, but in the mid game and even late game as well.
Yeah, that two-item power spike on Gwen right now is absolutely nutty. Nashor's Tooth with Riftmaker. You kind of have to rush that healing cut early, or else Gwen just doesn't die. And with that Hallowed Miss ability, I frankly think that's so messed up right now. You
Mhm.
can't really get a pick onto Gwen, and you need to physically throw your body in there. When I'm looking at AOE squad here, the only person I feel like is going to be able to get in there is going to be that Scion for Faisal. For Viego to get in there, Darkwings has to be very, very careful how you get in there, because if you get hit by Snip Snip, the true damage comes down. Well, Viego is very, very squishy here. So a lot of pressure onto Faisal in what is a bit of a counter pick.
And we're putting pressure on Faisal, of course, because of the way that the lane went yesterday.
Mhm.
But the other person that definitely showed that they're able to pick up slack is RBM, and RBM's on the Rumble. Rumble is actually really good into this composition, and I say that mostly because of Udyr and Gwen.
Yeah, I just realized I completely forgot about the Rumble. That could be a Rumble mid and Viego jungle. That to me would make a lot more
Ooh,
sense. Would it actually Rumble into Zoe? Still kind of a rough matchup here, but I do
yeah,
think I prefer the jungle Viego a little bit more, just because it
interesting.
you protected early a little bit. Like, and Viego's roughest part of the game is the early game. When you're kind of weak, you skill up really, really well. And it's the same reason why we do see quite a bit of Gwen jungle currently in the meta. I'm curious to see who they actually send to the jungle here, Viego or Rumble, and how they're going to pilot this around this Zoe, this strong point for the side of TSM Amateur.
I'm double checking if we can get some sort of confirmation on that before we actually get into the rift right now, because to see who gets locked in where would give us a lot better of an idea of how this game will be going. But let's focus on the knowns, right? Because Rumble
Mhm.
or Viego mid isn't really going to change where I expect the Dragons to be going, and that's into TSMA.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with that. Just like we already talked about the bot side, the fact that Jinx Thresh is going to struggle a little bit into that Kaisa Nautilus here. And now with that mid lane prior from Zoe, that's not even regarding the jungles coming in. Udyr is very, very annoying and is a very strong early game jungler here. So TSM Amateur, if they can get that stacking real quick here, and then with that late game insurance from Gwen, they're in a pretty good position. And for AoE, I'm curious to see how they contest this. They'll probably have to give up first Drake, but second, maybe they can fight that. And third, they definitely want to fight that. You don't want to give over Soul Point without contest here.
Yeah, if you're an AoE fan person, you would have seen in their run up to where what was this called? Challengers Uprising Summer Sprint, the open qualifiers to get into this tournament, that they did often end up going for this sort of we'll give up the first two dragons, play strong side top, and find ourselves an advantage there. But this time, the draft makes that just a little bit harder, especially with the Scion matchup into Gwen. It's very difficult to take advantage of that top lane. And like you say, things are really going to come to a peak around that third Drake. And I'm not sure if AoE will have gotten enough on the other side of the map. But there is only one way to find out, RMC, and it is my favorite way of all of them. It's to throw us to a quick break before we get into Summoner's Rift and see this play out for ourselves. We'll catch you in a few.
KDA, should we show them how we do it every day? Let's get it. Kali that girl, Kali go girl, Kali don't stop, Kali don't skirt, Kali got a job, Kali go to work. 뜨거워 언제나 don't get burned. 넘쳐 흘러물 든 a buffet, 죽여주잖아 like a buffet. 누가 감히 on my outfit, 그 문 열지 마 that's a rough day. 당겨 on your mark 'cause I'm greater than. 필요 없는 시험들 다 뿐이미. But all of my numbers are talking bang. 부르마 on message monopoly. 눈종이 돈이나 real money 필요 없대 너네들이 만든 돈들 go get it, go get it, go get it. 더 미션 눈을 못 떼 못해 그래 너도 get it 'cause I got it different. All I'll ever know is life upon the throne.
Welcome to the world, no heroes and villains. Welcome to the war, we've only begun. So pick up your weapon and face it. There's blood on the ground, go and take it. You get one shot to make it out alive. So higher and higher you chase it. It's deep in your bones, go and take it. This is your moment. Now is your time, so prove yourself and rise, rise. Make them remember you. Rise, push through heaven. Rise, rise. They will remember you. Rise. Welcome to the climb up, reach for the summit. Visions brave the one false step lead the end. So higher and higher you chase it. It's deep in your blood, go and take it. This is your moment. Take to the skies, go. Prove yourself and rise, rise. Make them remember you. Push through heaven. They will remember you. It is you fight among the dead beneath the dirt. Or do you know yet? Or do you want it? And when the giants call to ask you what you're worth, do you know yet? We don't die. Prove yourself and rise, rise. Make them remember you. Push through heaven. Rise, rise. They will remember you. Prove yourself and rise, rise. Pick up your weapon and face it.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift.
Welcome to the Rift, ladies and gentlemen, for game 1 of AOE, going up against TSM. We've already gone down some of the rosters, how the game is expected to play out, but I want to talk a little bit about the players that have some pressure on them in the early game, because RMC, it's one of my favorite things to do. It sets up where we want to be looking for each of these teams to succeed.
For sure. And for AOE Esports, I think just based on what we saw yesterday here, I've got to be watching RBM and Darkwings. I mean, these guys already have pre-existing synergy from back in the day from Zeus Gaming here. And it showed yesterday because when Faisal was struggling, you know, when Sketch Dreams and Fizzy were just farming out the bot side, it was Darkwings and RBM making plays in the mid to either keep them in the game or get them ahead in the early.
And at the moment, a lot of the early game plays I was looking at were not coming through the jungle, but reliant on where it was that AOE knew that they were strong and not, based on where RBM was on the map. And I'm not necessarily looking for him to gank on the Rumble, because it's not Rumble's style. But if we can get a little bit of aggression from each of the lanes as RBM is in the area, I feel like that's a key to success.
Yeah, I can't argue that. I mean, definitely you play around your strong points, but I do want to point out that because we weren't sure where the Rumble and Viego were going, it is Rumble jungle, it is Viego mid. And during that break that we had, a little bit of a longer break than usual, I was desperately looking up this Viego Zoe matchup because I'm not familiar with it. And apparently, Viego wins this in lane. I'm a little surprised. I'm guessing it has a lot to do with the mobility of Diego being able to dodge things out and maybe the stun to punish the Zoe R. But already, yeah, we're starting to see some favorable trades coming through for Darkwings.
Yeah, that stun really messes with Zoe's day right now, but they do get a nice wave positioning, and Darkwings shows us that he was watching Aspect's stream yesterday. Definitely dropping that ward into the Raptor pit is going to give them some really nice information on where Infectrix is. The person who can provide a lot of this CC early game can make the lanes hard.
Yeah, and if you're able to track that Udyr here, you will know kind of where you should be looking at when you can play to your strong points, especially for this mid lane, because if your Viego is a winning lane and you're expecting Jinx and Thresh to be losing Sion, to lose pressure a little bit as well here, then it does expose Darkwings, and you need to be able to counter gank there, or else you risk losing your one edge, and then all the objectives in the map sort of are out of your control.
In the bot lane, speaking of objectives, we are having Sketch Streams and Fizzy actually be able to lay down a surprising amount of pressure, and that specifically around Drake time, which is albeit far off from us still, can be really important, especially if they can get these nice resets. We have AOE given the opportunity perhaps to be able to contest some of the more early objectives that we didn't think they were going to get the chance to, and it really does come down to how they're able to keep pressure up there.
And they do spot out RBM here, and Darkwings, like I said, going to be a bit exposed. Flash coming through.
No. It's not going to be a kill, but Darkwings does end up having to flash in response. 2 flashes burned, interestingly, from TSM to try and make that gank work.
Yeah, and you know what? If it's just the Zoe flash, I'm okay with that, because Zoe picks up summoners left and right anyways. With Summoner's Spellbook, it's not that big a deal. But 2 for 1, you blow the Udyr's flash as well. Now, that is good. And top side, Faisal is actually trading really well. So AOE across the board right now, they don't feel like they've got losing lanes anywhere. And that's enabling RBM to kind of go around, do whatever you want, not really punished for the most part here. And more importantly, I'm just watching for this first dragon to see what might happen here with it. If AOE can actually just straight up contest this first Drake, and if they can get it, then I think they're in a really solid position.
At the moment, I think it is interesting that they have basically unanimous map pressure, even with this trade onto Fizzy there, even with Donbray and Gorica able to play out the lane relatively evenly. There's not actually a whole lot that we're seeing go in TSM's favor explicitly. It feels like they're losing the minimum everywhere.
And it's still early yet, right? We're roughly at about, what, 3 minutes right now? We've got plenty of time to go. And Gwen, this top lane monster here, which we sometimes see in the jungle, I feel like even if you're behind, as long as Gwen hits the right power spike, that 1.5, 2 item power spike without being too far behind when things are relatively even here, then things kind of swing your way. And that's without the catch potential from Zoe as well. That we were kind of talking about the reason why I like Zoe so much. I think if Zoe's going even with Viego, if sources are to believe, that's a win for Zoe.
That's true. And as the matchup does sort of scale up, Zoe is going to be able to provide some of those intangibles in the form of the engage, but Darkwings might have been caught out there, and can get Zoe a little bit further ahead. Things will be good. Darkwings, though, once again able to escape yet another gank from Infectrix. The Udyr has 100% committed into this mid lane with 2 times the pressure, but nothing has actually happened yet for his laner.
Yeah, and that's good. If you're drawing all this pressure away, RBM's just able to farm things up right now. And where RBM is looking to throw that first gank is also very, very important. The cheese, can they pull this off? They don't know. They don't know.
He's just going to go for it, and RBM is already here. This is a tragedy for TSM. They've got to escape somehow. Gorica does have the flash, but it knows that he's already dead. First blood is going to go over to RBM. Make it maybe almost second there.
Oh my
nice hook lands, and oh my god! Donbury escapes on single-digit HP.
I can't believe Donbury got away from that one there, but that is flash blown. Gorica's flash, the only summoner left for the side of TSM Amateurs bot lane here right now, and that is very, very good. Because remember we were talking about Dragon, Dia. Cloud Drake is up right now. The bot lane is vulnerable, and if RBM hits 6, you can easily just force the bot lane here without the flashes. That should be a kill on Donbury at the very least.
And observe the consequences as well. Infectrix isn't taking this Lion down, goes in for an invade, takes away the blue. It's a really nice play, and especially because it doesn't seem like AOE are prioritizing this early Wind Drake at all. They're going to get away with what is maybe not an even trade, but still one where TSM don't feel that bad about it.
The only problem is, usually when you take away a big buff like that, it's twofold. First, you deny the experience from the enemy jungler. You slow them down a little bit. And second, you also deny that benefit away. But neither Viego or Rumble really care too much about mana here. So they're happy to give up that blue buff beside the experience here. And if you get a kill, that kind of evens things out on the experience front.
I'm giving a look at the minimap right now to see what Fizzy is doing. He's been hanging out in his own jungle. I suspect making sure that there's no counter jungling from Infectrix, and as a roam in general, I like it because it gives your team a little bit of safety, but it does cost some pressure for Sketch Streams in this bot lane, and into a Kai'Sa Nautilus lane, it's not necessarily the thing you want to be doing. As he rejoins though and instantly lands a hook, that could be a big problem. TSM already getting chunked out here, and it's right before the dragon is potentially focused as well.
Ooh, that's real dicey here. Again, I'm still waiting for RBM, to get in there. I believe that it's not super warded, so you could actually sneak RBM into the bush right now. There's not a ton of vision, and we're seeing the rotation down from Eclipse as well. Herald being started up by Infectrix, and Darkwing's just constantly getting ganked.
It just doesn't matter, though. He pops his way out and makes it look easy. Ganking this Viego is not the source of early game success that I think TSM wished that it was, and they take the gamble. They end up taking the Rift Herald here. It's the opposite of the play that I thought that I would see, but I don't hate it from TSM because they're still getting that cash money injection almost guaranteed by the little purple Shelly lady.
Yeah, we'll have to see where they opt to drop Shelly here. They got plenty of time for that. And I want to point out that Eclipse's roam right now, completely unpunished, is still up in CS here. Faisal tried to push the wave in, but you're not going to lose too much of those CS. Eclipse is going to be more than happy with that. So there's no punish through. RBM not really getting pressure, and
a little bit of a problem there.
So mobile.
Yeah, and Viego goes drowsy as well. It's going to be a problem, but RBM does show up Infectrix as well, and with the Equalizer not quite hitting, I want to say anybody, things could be in a little bit of trouble, though. With the flash committed from Infectrix, he finds himself a little bit too deep and is going to go down. As great hook from Fizzy is going to land the kill into Doxa as well. Now 3-0. Or, no, wait, more.
No, it's 3-0. That's fine for now. Might be more depending on how the top side goes, but I think Eclipse will be fine. There's no one there to back Faisal up, and honestly, without the turret focusing, Eclipse Faisal's probably not going to be able to 1v1 that. But that mid lane fight, I honestly, that was a commit from TSM Amateur that didn't need to happen there. The Equalizer came out and didn't do much, and theoretically at that point, that's all that AOE Esports can kind of do there.
Didn't do anything.
Yeah, they just got to walk away. But because Infectrix recommitted so hard there, it cost them and baited Doxa. And that was also off a great roam from Fizzy here. And while Fizzy roamed up, Sketch Streams barely impacted, is going to go even in farm. All it does is gets Gorica and Dombre a little bit of back timing here.
And while that may be nice, like you say, it's ultimately not the play that TSM would have wanted. Although, as a whole, AOE at least are very happy because they've gotten some gold onto one of their carries who might be a little bit undersung at times, but especially on this Rumble is going to make good use of the gold. The only AP on the map is now also a little fed.
That's where you want to be coming into the mid game here, because Rumble does fall off a little bit, so you don't want to be skilling up or waiting too long to take advantage of this magic damage here. Now RBM taking okay, my screen is a little fuzzy right now, so look for a second like he's just standing there, but yeah, it took a bit of time to clear the wards. And Infectrix once again going in, looking for these small advantages there. Yes, they messed up the play mid, but they're gonna keep on invading, and while Rumble is strong in team fights, not so great in the 1v1 and losing control of their jungle a little bit.
Look out, though. We got another gank for Darkwings here, and nothing tells the story of this game like that, although, as it continues, RBM shows up to play the hero with those 2 kills, makes short work of Doxa, and almost does take down Infectrix as well. The answer back is there, though, with Eclipse. Claims the shutdown, but gets taken down in the meantime. There's just too much damage on AOE.
for a second, for just a second, Diaz, thinking, Gwen already? We're not seeing the Rift Maker yet. We're not seeing the Nashor's Tooth, but no, it was just a fleeting dream. We saw the power of that Hallowed Mist right there in buying Eclipse time. But just right off the bat, the fact that Infectrix and Doxa were already down, that's not looking good. And now the score 6-1. AOE starting to run away a little bit with this game here. You can expect to see them being the ones to call the shots, whether it be RBM forcing a gank with that equalizer or even Faisal kicking action off here in that, minute and a half or minute 40 seconds when that Inferno comes up here. That's going to be when I think we're really going to see AOE start to flex their muscles here.
And off the back of that, it just gets worse as well. Dawnbray roams up to mid lane to try and once again gank Darkwings, but he leaves Gorica with a frozen wave bot lane, and that is disastrous, especially when you're going up against a Jinx who does want that safety to scale. Sketchstreams has already had the time of his life.
Yeah, now Shelly did get dropped mid here. They are trying to get some pressure, some plates as well. But really, you're just getting a little bit of gold. You can already see the rotations there. RBM's near enough to drop an equalizer if they need it. And now they're starting to rotate back. But Sketchstreams, like you said, still has that freeze going. Is more than happy, more than comfortable to continue just holding them out. And once RBM finishes clearing this bot side, he will be near that bot lane. Dragon will be spawning. Everything aligns for AOE here.
You got to imagine that Infectrix is being called onto the map one more time, even as the freeze gets broken. You have to punish this somehow, or AOE are just getting away with murder right now. Although, unfortunately, Udyr, having recently cleared his bot side of the jungle, doesn't look like he's going to be able to get much done in the mid lane. No, Doxa could turn things around, does get the stun and a little bit of damage, but it's all these small skirmishes for TSM that look like in an extended way they would go in their favor that just aren't being allowed to extend by AOE.
Okay, yeah, I feel like we've been running full tilt for the last 5 minutes here. Lots and lots happened around. But I think we have a little bit of time right now because TSM Amateur did set up vision for Dragon. And we might see a bit of a bait, which doesn't look like it's coming through. So I want to talk about game state. Where are the teams right now and how are they looking for these team fights? AOE, yes, they're ahead, but it's not like TSM don't have tools to come back in. Zoe is just very, very strong. The Sleepy Trouble Bubbles, we've seen the trades come through. And if Dark Wings does get tagged, still does get chunked for 30 to 40% of their health in one switch here. And top side, we keep seeing the camera pull back top because Eclipse is still scaling up. Does have the Rift Maker now. Opted to go for that before the Nashor's Tooth. So once that Nashor's Tooth comes in, I think Faisal might not actually be able to lane anymore at all against Eclipse.
And that's kind of what I like about the TSM comp right now, is that they have that option, even as the game does go later, to play the Invincible Gwen game. We saw this a little bit yesterday, or rather teased, with Surdy in EGP's matchup, where top lane was just getting dominated, I'll be honest. But the... how do I say? The reality is that if you do get yourself a side lane that you're able to play around really well, and Eclipse is able to play this safety game, play a side lane pressure game, I don't see what the answer is for AOE.
They don't have a direct answer in terms of sending... Well, you can send the Viego potentially, and it becomes a very skill-based matchup in a way.
Broken
Viego
champion
has to dodge it.
broken champion.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, those players are both... those champions, pardon me, are both very strong for a reason. Alternatively, you can just force the team fights. You've got the Scion with the Unstoppable Charge. And if you want to talk about not having an answer to that, TSM Amateur really don't have an answer to a Scion just charging them down and then kicking things off and then the Equalizer coming out. So I still feel like AOE has the better tools when they're ahead. Well, for that matter, both these teams are great when they're ahead. It's just more of a matter of getting there. And AOE right now is the ones who are there.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about the tools that, in the meantime, TSM have as well to get these team fights going in their favor. Because a lot of this, oddly enough, does rely on Dawnbray from my perspective. He is the one that has that, what I'll call hard engage, the one that doesn't just require somebody running at you and hoping that you're AFK, as the Udyr does. He's got the Nautilus hook, he's got the depth charge, and those things alone can find picks. If you get just a nice little artistic one into Sketchstreams, even onto Dark Wings, those picks could mean the world.
Yeah, and it's... yeah, I'm just trying to think, like, that's really the only way I think we are Gonna see them coming back in as the fight kicks off here.
Unfortunately, Donbray is the one that gets caught. That is the that literally as I say it, I'm like, ooh, that hurts, because the hope that we were just talking about gets deleted, and now check it out. It's AOE reclaiming the vision that they lost around that mid lane, and they've yet to lose the dragons as well that we expected TSM to have in the early game. They've got a lead, they've got an objective lead, and they just reclaimed all the vision.
And I do want to point out that Fizzy almost went down in that fight there. It almost was a 1-for-1 trade. And if TSM Amateur go 1-for-1 with the supports, you know, I think they'll be okay with that. The problem is that that goal difference that we've been seeing accrued here for the side of AOE is starting to show its head a little bit here. TSM Amateur just not enough damage to be able to finish anybody off, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Again, I'm looking for Eclipse, and right here, broken versus broken. Let's go.
Yeah, we were about to see exactly how that would play up. Unfortunately, knowing that Sketch Streams was on the way, or likely on the way, it's going to be the disengage from Eclipse. So we'll have to wait for the actual full committal matchup. In the meantime, full committal's going down in the mid lane there as RBM gets aggressed on, drops his own ultimate as tower's going to fall, giving AOE no safety right now. A double teleport is going to buy them a little bit of time into the front line. Goes Faisal, gets a great knock up here, and we're playing a really nice front to back, which means Sketch Streams and Darkwings just get to run through the enemy team. A double kill goes to this Jinx, who has lied silent this entire game, now finally getting the chance to pop off.
Now, Doxa and Gorica, the two carries left alive, can they find anything? No,
no! Darkwings, please don't do it to him! Gorica is actually so sad right now. Darkwings actually might have watches for it though, and will end up cleaning up the AD carries. Mid lane tower in response as well, and it is a huge play for AOE.
All I can hear in my head right now, Tia, is the Jaws theme song, just when you thought it was safe to get in the water, and then the flash comes through and Gorica gets taken down. Doxa forced to watch as the mid lane turret goes down, but that, I mean, it's only a 1 turret lead for the side of AOE right now. That top lane turret's still very healthy, and for all that Eclipse is dying in these team fights, Eclipse is still picking up the kills, still picking up the assist, is still scaling up, and while, yes, we didn't see Eclipse actually beat Darkwings to the top side, Darkwings didn't beat Eclipse either, so both of these guys can continue to look to scale.
And that's exactly what I want to say TSM are relying on, but also something that AOE aren't exactly unhappy with. As the scaling game goes on, I honestly think it does become more about that Elder Dragon later. The problem is that you can't give up the Ocean Drake that is on the horizon right now for nothing. And TSM, they're making a play to try and take a little bit of momentum away from AOE's impending soul win condition. RBM, though, he's already here. Oh, what an equalizer! Gets dropped on 3 members right now, and they steal the dragon away. AOE get 4 kills and put themselves on soul point.
Yeah, before that fight, I was going to tell you, I don't think it's about the Elder here. I don't think we're going to make it that far. After that fight, yeah, I'm 100% sure the Elder is not really what we're looking at. Baron on the table as well, with only Infectrix and Doxa once again alive here. They can't contest this. And that equalizer from RBN was just beautiful to watch. They were forced. If you're going to try and stick around for that dragon, you have to take that burn damage. And because of that hesitancy, that moment where they're like, do we go? Do we wait? You could see that by the time they were all kind of low, they just didn't get a choice. They had to take option 3, which was just walk away or die.
It was rough to watch from TSMA, but I do believe that that is a play that they had to make. Trying to delay this Ocean Soul is the most winning that you're going to get, and unfortunately it doesn't go their way, making this game even harder for them. If you're asking me, RMC, this is now a matter of how well can AOE close out a game, because TSM may not have played the early game poorly, but playing the late game, it's going to be on hardcore mode.
Yeah, and for TSM Amateur as well, I mean, this is a best of 3, and we have to remember as well, I said in the beginning, this is a pretty much brand new team here. Yes, the players have played in PG, but they've not necessarily played as a team very much. And the fact that they won this is absolutely amazing. This game, yes, the cracks are showing a little bit. We are seeing a little bit of a lack of coordination here. Infectrix not really able to make too much use of their pressure here. And Doxa did well individually, couldn't snowball that. So they have things to think about going into game 2 here. And the thing about a new team is that their performance can shift drastically in a series here. So I don't expect to see that, game two is going to be the same way where, TSM Amateur are going to struggle, at least not the same way in the early game.
No, certainly not. And I would hardly say that they struggled really in the early game, but more so that none of their plays panned out exactly as they would like. Nonetheless, though, you can see that they're still making them, and nothing showcases that to me more than exactly what we're seeing right now. Trades of towers across the map. Yes, it might be risky, but Eclipse is still making the heads-up plays, trying to create that unstoppable Gwen side lane.
Well, now's the time for Eclipse to decide. If Eclipse does not back right now, they lose this turret and potentially the inhibitor here, because with the Baron push, they've got the minions to do it. They've got the damage with Viego, with Jinx, and the fact that Dark Wings is allowed to go under turret like that without any sort of poke or threat, to me, it's just that just shows how far ahead they are.
The reset has come in from Eclipse, and right now TSM do want to engage before that inhibitor tower does fall, before the base is broken. It's so hard to come back from that. But nothing doing right now as Sleepy Trouble Bubble doesn't find its mark, and Dark Wings is more than comfortable taking the upfront duel with Doxa.
Okay, Eclipse is still mid, and as long as they have vision on Eclipse, they don't care. And Faisal right now, Faisal is basically a ward and just a distraction to pull Eclipse aside with that Baron here. Now, open inhib. This is really risky for TSM Amateur to try and defend, and I kind of want to see AOE take advantage of this right here with Faisal, with the initiate. There's no turret here.
AOE do have a lot of safety right now as well, given that they have that equalizer to drop on any sort of engage. They're going to be able to get that inhibitor, walk away for free, and I think continue using their Baron in that mid lane, because nothing really happened right there that has forced any major cooldowns.
Well, the Baron's about to expire here, so they've made good use of it. They've broken it through, and Dragon coming up in about a minute here.
Oh, no.
That's so, and this is Ocean Soul here. So if you thought it was hard enough to kill them before, and you've only got 2 kills at 20+ minutes, it's about to get that much worse.
Yeah, this is the big problem that every team has come up against at some point, trying to say, you know what, we might be able to scale, we might be able to do this, but we have to fight over this Ocean Soul, and there it is likely over. TSM, though they may be new, they've got a lot of individual talent, and now they've got to step up and make the huge plays individually to be able to stay in this game.
I don't.
It's okay, you don't have to have hope. I have hope, and that's what matters.
Fair enough, yeah. I mean, with this big elite, yeah, I just, their comp isn't necessarily the best team fight composition here. Dombury is going to be their main initiate, but look at what Dombury has in terms of items. Besides the support item, not even a single completed item right now. So Dombury goes in, and you're going to get blown up faster, perhaps, than maybe even Doxa here, who is technically a squishy carry of your team. And with the way it's set up, they don't have vision into the pit. There's so many bushes to walk through. And you've got supers pushing your top side. So AOE can take their own sweet time with this.
Oh, and the Dragon is up as well. With all of that, it only gets worse. The fact that Infectrix is spotted, having to loop his way all the way around here. Does have flash to get into the pit, but isn't going to arrive quite fast enough. Ocean Drake's going to go down first, and now Infectrix in the pit is going to try and initiate. Rumble ult gets dropped defensively here, and the Equalizer still burns through 2 members here. No members of AOE haven't gone down yet. Oh my lord! Double kills, almost triple kills are landing, and just rolling in for RBM is not only the Ocean Soul secured, but the near ace and soon to be the game.
Yeah, we're not getting it already. I think this is a wrap right here. They have supers in the base, and I just want to point out that last fight that RBM almost died. 10% Zonias. Look at how healthy RBM is right now. You don't have any special healing. It's just off the Ocean Soul and the Ocean Streaks.
And that was, you know, a lot of work to get them there. AOE weren't expected to have the Dragon priority early on, but they made that work, and they made the rest of the game work for them, piloting them to what looks like a very nice Game 1 win.
Definitely a handy one here, Dia, and I'm very impressed by what we've seen from AOE. Yesterday, I mean, EGP made the games look hard. TSM Amateur did, I feel like, make a couple of mistakes early, but it was wholly on AOE that they managed to really run away with the game here, just completely took off. I didn't think RBM actually had the best setup, but he had enough setup. And the mid-game plays coming up RBM here were just absolutely nutty. Those equalizers did so much work. And I'm thinking Game 2, maybe we see either the Rumble picked away by the side of TSM Amateur, or they might have to ban it.
Honestly, no matter what TSM do, whether they get Rumble or not, I'm hoping that they have a little bit more lane setup, because Infectrix was throwing himself bodily into the mid lane, and there was nothing going on there. There wasn't the ability to hold anybody in place. He wasn't able to get on top of folks, and if those ganks go well, TSM have an entirely different game on their hands. It was this constant absorbing of pressure by Dark Wings and then placing of pressure onto the map by RBM that made the difference between these two. And if TSM do want to walk away with at least the 1-for-1 off of next game, I'm hoping that they get a little bit more enabling of a very clearly aggressive jungler. But you know what? We're going to have to wait till next game to find out what it actually brings. So let's go ahead and toss ourselves to a quick break before we get into the draft of Game 2.
As a child, you would wait and watch from far away. But you always knew that you'd be the one that would while they all play. And you'd lay awake at night and scheme of all the things that you would change, but it was just a dream.
Welcome back, guys. I hope you haven't been too lonely. We are here. It's me, Dia. We're joined by RMC. Thank you so much for your patience as we're getting into game number 2 very shortly. Before the draft does begin, though, we've got a little bit of time, and I wanted to continue our discussion, RMC,
Mhm.
from game 1 because this time I still feel like I'm coming into this with a lot of hope for TSMA.
Yep, I would agree with that, dude. I am too, and I feel like that's one of the attractions of a newer team is that you can have hope that they will perform better. Like I said, for a new team, your performance between games can wildly fluctuate here.
Mhm.
And when we did see the post game scores and sheets a little bit after game one, there we could see that Infectrix did a lot of damage, and so did Eclipse there. And Doxa, at least the eye test during the game, was not performing that poorly either. So I feel like if you can take all those individual components and combine them together, get that damage from Infectrix to the lanes that need it, get Eclipse into the fights a little bit better here, and make sure that Dox's survivability translates into actual damage, then yeah, I think they still have a shot here in game two.
And you were expecting, I believe, that the Rumble might be taken away or otherwise prioritized, perhaps in the bans. If we do see that Rumble taken away, the other thing that I find myself asking is what does that come at the cost of? Because last time TSM did take away Lee Sin and Tristana as well as a Diana, and that is I don't really see myself wanting to give any of those up.
Yeah, no, that is completely true here. And the problem, so there's just so many power picks right now, right? Like the fact you have to take Tristana out because Sketch Dreams look so good on it. Lee Sin being that strong champion that he is, will get slightly nerfed in 11.11, but we aren't there yet. And Diana, just RBM's Diana is wicked. So who do you give up here? I almost feel like maybe you let that Tristana through a little bit because the Jinx Thresh coming through from Sketch Dreams and Fizzy just looked illegal in the bot lane. I honestly don't think they should have won as hard as they did. And it wasn't as if we saw that much attention early. RBM did gank bot, but it wasn't right away. Just hovering bot gave them a little bit of an edge, but the way they just ran away with it here, I think you maybe just seat that Tristana over. You pick something that scales for yourself on the side of TSM Amateur instead and play through your top side. Because like we said, all the great stats, the high damage, the good eye test, all of that mostly came from the top side of the map.
Yeah, and I feel like there was this other sort of X factor given there that made me feel, and I'm just talking about my emotions now, RMC, but made me feel like TSM weren't the ones in control of the game far before they actually didn't have the autonomy to, because of that bot lane dictating the pace of mid lane more than anything. And when I say that, I'm specifically talking about Fizzy. I know that he's a roam
Mhm.
monster, and anyone that's seen these VODs will know it as well, but it wasn't just something that is on the Alistair, it's on the Thresh too, and so often we would see him move around the map, cover for his mid lane, cover for his jungle, and make the game about something else, forcing Dawnbray to respond and leaving these two in a 1v1 that is just not favorable.
Yeah. You know what? I think that it's not just Fizzy, it's just how AoE plays as a whole here, knowing how to take the small leads and really snowballing. Because if we think back to the fact that Fizzy was roaming, why was Fizzy allowed to roam? That's a jinx into a Kai'Sa Nautilus. Theoretically, especially post 6, once that Thresh starts to roam here, if Jinx is not in a perfect position to freeze, which she wasn't always, yes, Sketch Dreams did get some great freezing positions, but sometimes it was still a fairly even lane. Fizzy got to roam out because RBM went down to that bot side, made Gorica and Dombre a little bit scared, got the advantages Sketch Dreams needed to be able to hold 1v2. And then Fizzy could roam and snowball that lead from RBM into the mid lane, continue to back up Darkwings, make sure that the lead that Darkwing secured was stable here. So it's all these small little things which they're able to snowball. And for a team like TSM Amateur, if you can't do the same thing, then you've kind of got to counter that with a big lead, a big advantage somewhere else. So I want to see them almost like pick a lane and just be like, okay, this is the lane. We're absolutely going to blow wide open here. We'll sack the bot lane if we have to, get Dombre up to gank, say, mid, or, if it's the top lane, get your mid, get Doxa, get Infectrix, go up there, pay a visit, get Eclipse going right away.
It's nice that you mentioned Dunbury as well, because I was going to say it can't just be Infectious. We saw Infectious trying so hard last game, and it just was not. I feel for him, honestly. It just was not working out. So I am hoping that it does involve a little bit more of the support, maybe even top roams as well. Speaking of top lane, though, I did want to ask you. We definitely have some questions about Faisal going into this game,
Mhm.
or rather coming out of yesterday's games. Do you feel like your worries were assuaged by the way he performed on the Sion and Gwen?
Not really, to be honest
Okay,
here.
that's fair.
Yeah, I think Faisal. So my impression of Faisal so far, just based on what we've seen here in Challenger Uprising, is that he's not great at laning necessarily. He's not going to be the one to find a great lead. Will fall behind, but what he can do from behind, playing weak side, that has impressed me, and that much has stayed the same with this Sion here. Yes, he was down CS. Yes, he was down pressure, but you could see the moment Faisal was unlocked from that 1v1, the way Faisal could get engages with the unstoppable onslaught. And not only that, just the way he piloted that Sion as well, physically getting into the middle of that fight around that mid lane turret. What was that? Roughly about maybe 12 minutes. Can't remember the exact time. But when Sion was there, body blocking the damage, Udyr could not get around him. Nautilus, the dredge lines was hitting the Sion, and Faisal was just like, okay, I'll just stand here and take all of this here because it means that my team is not taking the damage and they can fire back. That I appreciate very much from Faisal.
Yeah, and this is partially what impressed me about the gameplay yesterday with what am I thinking of? With sketch streams as well. I know that I just took Faisal into sketch streams. Give me a second to justify it, because part of that is also, bear with me, your ADC not inting. And so often, we do see a lot of ADCs overextend. But on
Mhm.
the Jinx here, I was expecting, honestly, for Sketch Dreams to be put in a position where the game was a lot harder, because Tristana can be so forgiving, and that's what he'd been playing up until now. But one of the things that definitely changed, in my opinion, coming out of last game, was how confident I am in Sketch Dream's ability to perform solo and be able to manage his own positioning when the team can't necessarily do it for him.
Yeah, and I think I am quite impressed by what we've seen from Sketchstream so far. I know that before the cast we were talking, and I was saying that I don't know about Sketchstream so much. Yesterday, I felt like Sketchstreams didn't get an opportunity to shine because RBM and Dark Wings were just so brilliant yesterday. But today, as we watch this game, the early game, I am impressed. It's not flashy, but Sketchstreams won the lane consistently 1v2 whenever Fizzy was roaming out. Just had generally very good grasp of things, and the positioning in the team fights as well. I never felt like Sketch Dreams was really at risk of dying. And oh wow, okay, the picks and bans started.
Oh, I was about to say, I wonder if they're going to start, because I know that we have I know that we were having some technical difficulties, but it appears that they have been resolved, and now we get to talk about what's actually happening on the Rift here. And already, that very same Jinx that I was talking about, Sketch Dreams' Jinx, has been taken away, and he's going to trade it for the Kai'Sa. Fascinating.
I mean, no changes to the bans. I think we should say that off right off the bat. And
Oh,
AOE
yeah,
is
yeah.
blue side, which means that they get Rumble first pick, and why not? It works so well before taking away the Jinx. I like this because, like I said here, if why not just sack your ADC, give them a scaling ADC. Don't bother about winning the lane as much. Look to influence, pick another lane, pick top, pick mid,
Mhm.
go for that here. This is a good start, but it does mean that there's questions on, can Gorka perform as well? Can you survive? And Kai'Sa, Leona, and a Rumble already, that speaks of diving to me in this bot lane.
Yeah, this is not nearly the same composition, despite the fact that it starts with a Rumble. AoE feel like they're going to be playing those equalizers a lot more aggressively than defensively, and that's certainly going to be tough, because there's a Set on the other side of this, and Set can counter engage really well. Was in the mid game, at the very least, the nightmare of AoE just yesterday, and they'd show real growth if they were able to address such a problem. Going into just the second day of Challengers Uprising, as TSM get themselves an Alistair as well, there's going to need to be a lot of heavy execution on AoE to make a dive comp work if they're walking into that much CC.
Yeah, I mean, I like this Alistair pick here. I was actually thinking, okay, you get the Jinx, you get the Set. You're looking at a jungle, potentially Set in the bot lane here. But with that Alistair, that Set's probably going to go to a solo lane most likely.
Mhm.
But the Alistair works just as well. Alistair is a counter to the Leona. You can hit them away. You can pulverize. I mean, going in with the Zenith Blade really is just a free engage for the Alistair. And like we said, it's great for the counter engage. What it doesn't really help with still is that team fight. There's not much you can do about the Equalizer Solar Flare combo that does come out from that Rumble Leona. And that's not going to save Jinx. If Jinx gets tagged by that, she's still dead. So Gorica still needs to position well, despite the bit more margin of error they have for dives.
And I really like the bans from TSM as well. There's sort of this thing where Darkwings, he doesn't say it, but he does like the Silas into Alistair here, being able to take away things like the Unbreakable Will. And it's not just that, he's very talented on the pick as well, but I've noticed, he likes picking it into Alistair here, gets that taken away from him before we even hit the second round of the bans. And interestingly enough, AOE are going to deny the Gwen. TSM responding with a Kindred is actually probably the smartest move that we have in the draft so far. That's really something.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love the Kindred ban here. Kindred pickup here.
Pick.
In fact, I would have preferred the Kindred ban rather than the Udyr ban to come through. Because as I was saying, there's not much you can do about an Equalizer or Solar Flare. Well, Lamb's Respite is one of the few things that actually deals pretty well with that. Not to mention Kindred into Rumble.
Oh.
That's a perfectly fine jungle. Kindred can continue to scale up as well. So just really solid. And AOE, they're living up to their name. They're doubling down.
Yeah, and the Gnar actually addresses the Kindred in a very large way. This is a terrifying pick to be going into as TSMA. Doubling down on the Viego as well are AOE, giving them a little bit of utility to steal away by themselves. A person who very clearly was comfortable piloting the Viego and Darkwings last time, once again, is going to be able to become a threat.
Yeah, and considering that could be a blind pick Viego here, is a blind pick Viego.
Yeah.
That is a bit of a ballsy move. It doesn't necessarily synergize that much with AOE's existing composition, but it does give them really good skill. And because you look at Rumble, you look at Leona, Kai'Sa, Gnar, they're strong, but none of them are necessarily like the greatest late game hyper carries. They're not insurance. Viego fits perfectly. The counter of Orianna from TSM Amateur. I'm generally not a fan of Orianna coming out R5 or that late for that matter, because Orianna isn't exactly a great counter pick. It's a very safe pick, but I understand how it works. And I do think that it will work serviceably into this composition here. You give that bit of a shielding to that Kindred, to that Jinx. And more importantly, if AOE clump up, you can punish them here. And I've seen the tendency for teams who like to play AOE compositions to ball up themselves, even though they don't need to. So we'll have to see if AOE can keep that in mind, be mindful about their positioning, and not clump up because they don't need to.
Yeah, and it actually gives Doxa the ability to make the game about the Orianna in a way. It's really difficult to do if the pace of the game is being pushed, if Orianna isn't ahead, but we wait a little while for some items to get under her belt, and by God, that Ori is going to start blowing things up, because exactly like you say, AOE are predisposed in their champions to that playstyle of piling onto each other, all being in the same place at the same time. And definitely if they're trying to engage onto a TSM that is in a Lamb's Respite, the temptation is going to exist, and that ball is going to be the only thing stopping them.
Yeah, and I'm also keeping eyes on this set, which will most likely be piloted by Eclipse here, because for the side of AOE, not only do they not want to clump, but they will have some people going in and some people going out. And if you've got a Mega Gnar going in and you've got Kai'Sa Rumble trying to kite around the back here, set equipped with that ball, with that command protect, grabbing a Mega Gnar into the Kai'Sa. That's what dreams are made of. And remember how I said I wanted to see like a big flashy play from TSM Amateur? Because if you're not at the point where you can snowball a small lead yet because you're a new team, then you've got to make that big flashy play. That's one potentially really big flashy play. And well, if Eclipse can just distract everybody long enough by going in, that we see Gorica and Infectrix get to free fire on these AD carries, well, that's a really solid way to play the game as well, because both of them can take over fights if they're not being punished.
And to me, the game actually really does come down in a big way to Eclipse and to Doxa here, because as much as I'm looking for Gorica to lay out damage, the amount of autonomy that you have in an AD carry is sometimes overrated. And I definitely do think that we're going to be making their life very difficult. It's up to the mid and top laners of TSM Academy to keep their AD carry safe, to be able to provide the maximum there. And these are champions that can blow you up, can put down a killer counter engage if you allow them to. So AOE have got to play with their heads in the game. They can't play with the confidence of having won game one, despite the fact that they did, because that could land them in a whole heap of trouble. As we get onto the Rift, though, this is potentially the last game of the night, as AOE, if they do manage to get that early game snowball rolling, can crush it out. And TSM are fighting for their very lives in the series. Let's find out who comes out on top once we get back to the Rift in just a few minutes.
Your best stuff looks like my words. Synapses, fire, and burst. Got the whole crew with me, about to do damage. You know we ain't average. I ain't gonna say this again, but it's in my time. Better look in my eyes. I'm a genius in the skies with my heart on my sleeve. You force will block to a king in his prime. Everybody got a line. Sit back with the stars in line. I finesse like my life on the nine was a diamond in the rough, and now I shine.
No one could stop us, they'll try, but they won't. Nada nos puede parar. Oh no, we're wide awake now. Our eyes are wide open. We're running this world. We're keeping it turning. We're living like giants. Yeah, giants. We're bigger than giants. We're giants. Oh, sleeping giants. Sleeping giants. Yeah, shutting it down. Been in the ground, and my people all up in this place. Spinning this thing, go to my ring. Royalty up in my veins. I'm loco, think I'm so cold. I say something, ain't no going back. Now they ask where Kiki's at. I'm like, you can't hang with that. 쏟아져 빛이 멀게 된 눈이 멈추지 않아. Once we go, 내게 넣은 날로 모든 뼈 빨리 달려. 넌 못 따라와. True damage we do it. True damage 보여줄게. 뭐든 쉽게. 이기든 지든 my crew make the beat. No one could stop us. They'll try, but they won't. Nada nos puede parar. Oh no, we're wide awake now. Our eyes are wide open. We're running this world. We're keeping it turning. We're living like giants. Yeah, giants. We're bigger than giants. We're giants. It's not the way we're weak, but we coming right back. This time you're gonna see how we do it like that. We're living like giants. Yeah, giants. We're bigger than giants. We're giants. Oh, sleeping giants. Sleeping giants.
I keep on shattering time. I might just leave you behind. Homie, you stuck on rewind. You should quit sleeping on mine. You got your back on recline. When I damage your delicate spine, please don't act out, shy and surprise. They be like, what you mean? What is your winning scheme? I got a giant team. Biggest my self-esteem. Run it back, man. They think they go hard, I'm like, come again. You run out of time and I'm busting in. While you stumbling, I got this blade in my hand for your punishment.
We're wide awake now. Our eyes are wide open. We're running this world. We're keeping it turning. We're living like giants. Yeah, giants. We're bigger than giants. We're giants. It's not the way we're weak, but we coming right back. This time you're gonna see how we do it like that.
we get into game 2 of TSM Amateur against AOE Esports. Challengers Uprising Summer Day 2, Game 2, as I said. And TSM are looking to come back from losing Game 1 here, and I think they got the tools to do it. We've already seen what was a very heads-up draft into a very aggro AOE.
Yeah, definitely. See, I'm so stuck on that first sentence coming in. It felt like you ran through the whole alphabet there. AOE, TSM, AM, CUP.
They kind of did, yeah. Oh, God. Oh, no.
But you know what? Starting with the ABCs, not a bad idea for TSM AM right now, because I think they need a bit of a mental reset, go back to basics after the last game here. They've drafted themselves the tools to make things happen. But one thing we kind of didn't touch on was how their individual lanes are going to go, because I think they've got a lot of nice scaling here. But I don't think the lanes are going to be too good for them across the board. We talked about the Jinx here. Going to be a little rough against the Kai'Sa Leona, depending on how that plays out, especially without jungle pressure. Mid lane, Ori is getting a lot of poke damage down, but I don't think it's going to be a dominant lane for them. And top side, this is what I want to draw attention to, because Faisal, I've said I've not been impressed by the laning. Faisal's been on weak side pretty much every game. This time, Gnar should be strong side against Sett.
You say should be, but at the same time, I'm actually expecting top lane to be the most volatile one, especially for AoE, because it's a lane with reliable crowd control from Eclipse, and Infectrix does want somebody to put damage into. With that Miniar being so squishy, I actually want to see some pretty heavy attention given to it from TSM Amateur, and potentially have Faisal once again put in the position where he's got to play from behind. I'm sorry, Faisal. I love you. I love you so much. But I also want to see good League of Legends. And unfortunately, good League of Legends looks like not letting you play the game.
Oh, dear. And people think I'm the cruel one here.
It feels bad. Listen, you know I had to do it to him.
I'm sure they recognize that. RBM will go top. RBM will make sure that Faisal can play the game. Because, I mean, everybody else has had their time in the sun, right? We've seen Darkwings. We've seen RBM pop off. Sketch Dream did really, really well. It's Faisal's turn, guys. Like, go up there. Let Faisal play the game. It is a strong lane they can definitely make use of. And so far, Eclipse able to constantly get in there and trade. Not what I was expecting, but it's what you, Dia, were hoping.
Yeah, and that's exactly... Oh, as I might have to hold it, Donbray is actually taking quite a bit of damage here. Sketchstream's not going to be able to finish off the kill, and we will resume our discussion of the top lane. And oddly enough, bot almost became a bloodbath. Oh,
here we go. Here's the dive.
This is exactly what we were hoping for there. Faisal, very squishy on this Gnar, is going to be taken down. First blood goes to Infectrix, and that is how you abuse the top lane, ladies and gents.
Not only do they abuse it, yeah, they sent Doxa up there as well, just as insurance, because they really weren't sure they were going to be able to get that dive off. And now that Gnar lane that should be winning in isolation is set behind. And the scary part here is that they didn't burn any major summoners doing that, and they can look to just repeat that over and over again. Infectrix can look back up there, put the mark, punish. Eclipse can look to shove, get a little bit of poke down here. And for Faisal, nothing's going to change in the next, 15 minutes pretty much here. None of the items you buy are necessarily going to be able to prevent that dive from coming through repeatedly.
And now everybody else from AoE has to be scared as well, because Eclipse didn't have to burn his teleport to get back to lane there, whereas Faisal did. If a play breaks out in the bot lane, if we see an aggressive teleport from the set, there's no way that Gnar is going to be able to match that, and it becomes a very sticky situation for the rest of the map. Now AoE as a whole to play with the knowledge that the game could turn on its head at any time. Donbray trying to turn it on its head in the bot lane, does get a great knock up there, and Infectrix flashes to try and finish off Fizzy. The damage isn't quite coming in under the tower though, and just barely, by the skin of his teeth, this Leona is going to get out alive.
I love it here. I love so much what we're seeing here in game 2. In game 1, Infectrix struggled with that Udyr to get into things, and Udyr is very strong early. Kindred now not known to be a strong early game jungler, but Infectrix has just taken the fight to the lanes right here. Yes, they're down a lot in terms of CS right now, down in experience and levels as well, but they're getting the pressure here into the various lanes, and they're burning summoners. The question is, can they continue to keep this up, and can they convert it quick enough that RBM doesn't hit 6 and then start showing up in the lanes that much stronger than Infectrix and turning those ganks?
It's a ticking time bomb as well, because even with the best of junglers, ganks are going to come at a cost, and RBM hasn't been throwing them out anyway, is up in CS against Infectrix, and despite the fact that the number in the advantage is low, the fact that it's jungle CS counts for quite a bit, not just in the gold, but in the notable experience as we move towards that equalizer breakpoint.
Now, last game, RBM, Blue Side Rumble, didn't really do too much before First Drake went down. We're at 6 minutes. First Drake is on the table. RBM looking for that level 6 here. I'm wondering if we do get the gank first, or do we just see RBM go for this dragon with the aid of the pushing lanes? It's looking like the latter here, so no equalizer available, but where's Infectrix? Top side looking for a mark.
Oh no, Faisal might go down again if this wave crashes, but it's not quite large enough, so instead, TSM are going to be forced to look elsewhere with their priority, moving even into the top side jungle of AOE, but as the dragon gets taken, Infectrix is also going to find out that there's nothing left for him. On the other side of the map, of course, RBM is very happy.
Yeah, taking everything away here. I mean, they took away RBM's blue last game. RBM is returning the favor right now. And I love what Faisal is doing here. Staying very far away from that turret. Did get all the wards down because no rage bar. You know the mark was spawned top side here. So there's pretty good odds Infectrix is hovering.
And it's going to be confirmed right now as well. Blue side ward from Faisal is going to spot and invade from the Kindred. Goes to collapse on it, and RBM's joining him as well. Infectrix is very dead right now. Doesn't have the level 6 here, and RBM does. That equalizer doesn't even need to be dropped, though, as the Flame Spitter is going to do the work for him.
Yeah, I thought that RBM would, gank a lane and Infectrix wouldn't be able to match. No, they flat out just rush Infectrix down there. And to me, that is a little bit of an overstay from Infectrix. Yes, you got the safety bot side, though.
Oh. Yeah, Sketch Stream's very low right now, and Gorica doesn't have the Mega Death Rocket yet. Fizzy's trying to solo him in the meantime, though. Forces that cleanse pretty early on. No Ignite ticking on him anymore, though. Fizzy is going to go down, very much overcommitting there. Teleport channeled into the bot side, brings in Eclipse, and Sketch Streams now is the one in trouble. Flash forward from Eclipse, picks up yet another kill for his team there, and gets to walk away with his teleport well used.
Yep, definitely Sketch, that's for sure. Fizzy and Sketch Dreams just didn't feel on the same page there when Fizzy went in. Yeah. Sketch Dreams was so low, and you can see that Dawnbreeze positioning as well meant that Sketch Dreams was scared to step up. If you step into that pulverized range there, they can just turn and absolutely burn you down. And the moment Fizzy died, Sketch Dreams should have just backed off. The call should have been made. If Fizzy wants to go in, you sack Fizzy. As it is, Eclipse will be able to get a plate, so not going to lose too much for that TP there. Is still going to be down CS, but can match gold. Whereas Faisal pushed, went back. Is only going to get one plate to the 2 of Eclipse.
Faisal, I wouldn't say losing in that trade necessarily, but definitely not the winner. I know that sounds weird because he got stuff, he got stuff of his own, and that's really good. But Eclipse managed to make that just work ever so much slightly better for him. And a rotation of the top side is interesting from TSM Amateur. I think they're correcting it now, but for a second there, it looked like they were going to try and make a Rift Herald play off that with Rift Herald gone. Yeah,
no, Herald was already taken by RBM when Eclipse TP to the bot side there. Faisal couldn't match because of the TP. And partially, it is that as well. And I think it was also that Eclipse was already there pounding away on that turret here. So they sent up Gorica and Dawnbreak to deal with that push from Faisal. And Faisal backing, that was just solid play. As it stands, though, it was 1 plate to 2, but now it is kind of equalized because we do see Sketch Dreams and Fizzy able to answer with a plate on this bot side as well. And the gold, despite the kill lead for TSM Amateur, is dead even right now.
It's so even, actually. It's crazy how even this gold is, like you say, despite that plating advantage that we'd expect to translate. Instead, it's just the dragon as a difference right now, and that is in the pockets of AOE. Playing the same side as last time, interestingly enough. Once again, get that early objective, and as the second one's coming up in just a minute here, at least it won't be Ocean Soul, is what I'm thinking.
You know what, Dia? It's not Ocean Soul, but I think Mountain Soul is honestly just as annoying if you are ahead here. And Inferno is on the table because Nick's Drake is Cloud Drake here. If it's Inferno, it will be a much more explosive game. Now, camera does pan topside, so we do get to watch Faisal a little bit. I do want to draw attention to the fact that Faisal is up and ahead. Despite the early dive, is up in CS right now and is actually looking pretty comfortable in lane against Eclipse. So if Infectrix doesn't help that top lane again, I think Faisal might actually get to play strong side. I jinxed it the last time. Please don't jinx it this time.
As we say that, though, somebody else is looking comfortable bot side, and it's RBM dropping that equalizer onto an immobile AD carry. Gorica is going to fall. Donbray lucky to escape with the Lamb's Respite here, although his days might be numbered there as the Lamb's Respite does expire. Faisal tries to play strong side top, and Eclipse is going to try and trade it back here. Doesn't quite find the Haymaker, and Faisal gets to kite him out with the Rift Herald, gets dropped bot lane as well. This is going to be some big plates going in the favor of AOE, and Gorica, unfortunately, is going to miss out on a lot of CS.
Oh, Donbray?
Donbray actually goes aggressive there, almost finds a really big meme, excuse me, but the Mega Death Rocket from downtown takes out Sketchstreams.
And now RBM nicks on the chopping block here. Infectrix just needs one more.
Infectrix finds a double kill to the Kindred. That is incredible play from TSM, and they might even find more there. And they pull back Fizzy. Darkwings has arrived, though, and no ult from Infectrix is going to mean that he goes down. Dox is going to have to leave it all alone. A little bit of an overextension, but I'm still really happy with the way that they were able to punish the aggression from AOE.
Yeah, that play was really heads up the fact that Donbray was looking for that flash pulverize over the wall there, and you could see that the rocket came perfect timing. So that is definitely very good there. What hurts to me for AOE was that Fizzy ended up getting the kill and not Darkwings, because we've seen that Darkwings can take over a game at this Viego. Is currently 0-0-1, and nothing wrong with farming up from a Viego. That's always perfectly okay, but you just want to give the kills, and this is why they're nerfing Eclipse damage next patch.
Yeah, that is good, I think. I me no likey Eclipse, as you very well know. Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of the old Leona abilities here. Although it is going to, like you say, be a little bit more buffed up, give her a little bit more tankiness in that front line, which is going to be good for the side of AOE. Darkwings in a little bit of a sticky spot. Well, Fizzy goes in one more time, trying to make the most of that kill. Gorica quite low right here. Isn't going to go down to Sketchstreams as he gets CC'd up, but Faisal is in here like swimwear. Gets the single knock into the wall, though, and Donbray alone being stunned is not enough to turn the play around for TSMA. Chase down Fizzy, try to chase down Faisal, but another teleport in here might be what they need. Darkwing still doesn't get the kill, but he saves Sketchstreams and gives him one in the process. Looks for more under the tower. What is this? A double kill going over to Sketchstreams there. Yeah, they trade it, but it looks good from Darkwings.
I almost feel like picking up Gorica for Darkwings actually hurt him more than just walking out as that Viego right now. Because if you steal the soul of somebody weaker than you, you do end up weaker. And the last time we saw a TP play, it was Eclipse pulling it off, Faisal getting free push top. This time it's the opposite. And Eclipse just hammering away, getting all of these plates right now. I think if we check the gold, Eclipse probably is up a significant amount of gold just off plates here. And you've got to start transitioning that gold into these fights. 1-0-1, if you're very fed, doesn't quite cut it.
Interesting, though, that he's forced to burn the flash after all of that. Eclipse is going to have to reset here, and I think we'll have that stride breaker like you were alluding to with the gold to hopefully be able to take advantage of Faisal, but without that flash to make the plays, the advantage is going to have to wait to be pressed. Well, RBM, he's not waiting for anybody. Going to drop the equalizer on Gorica, who honestly almost goes down to that. But Sketchstreams, fortunately, is there to finish off. Eclipse arrives with the stride breaker, though, and over-aggressive plays are going to be punished. While Fizzy makes one of his own. Classic Fizzy this game, going in with the Leona. Actually might be able to get out here, but Phasebreaker should be back. Yeah, I know, he's dead. He's dead. Listen, Eclipse is OP. It's
I was just gonna say Eclipse is OP, but not that OP. I mean, they do answer on the other side. Their first turret does go down to Faisal, so it's kind of worth. But they do lose the Dragon, Cloud Drake, not the worst Drake to lose here. And it does unlock now the Infernal map. It is going to be Infernal Soul for both of these teams, and I don't think that we're going to see Dragons given up quite as easily, the next time. I expect to see better vision from the side of AOE here.
Having that priority on a Dragon as well, not the ability to rotate, but rather the fact that the teams both want to take it, seems to me like it's a little bit in AOE's favor as well, because their composition really does spike at around that 20-25 minute mark, and it's going to be as these Infernal Drakes come up that they are the strongest, that they are the ones that do want to team fight. TSM, got to be careful as these objectives do present themselves to have the proper setup there, because we've seen already that when they've got the vision, they can make the plays to keep themselves in the fight.
Well, on the other hand, just to play devil's advocate here, Dia, yes, there is a power spike, but there's also Infectrix, who is now 6-2-1 on this Kindred. Is looking real scary here. And by 25 minutes, Gorica should be starting to come online as well with this Jinx. And then you'll have the problem of, do we deal with that 6-2-1 Kindred, who's absolutely shredding our front line, or do we go for this Jinx, who's just powering out rockets from a range that is difficult for them to match?
And so much of that is going to be up to the positioning as well, because RBM has a target on Gorica's back for as long as I can remember. If that continues, it's going to be really tough for TSM to adequately position their carries. And as I say that, Fizzy also needs to adequately position. As much as that Rumble ult hurts, though, it's going to be enough to turn things around. RBM almost solo killing 3 people there, gets away with his life, barely dodging the Mega Death Rocket with Faisal in on the side. They could look for the re-engage. Chompers are going to deny it, and TSM are going to give up a kill.
For a second, I thought Dark Rings was actually trying to pull a Mission Impossible, sneak around the back, run through the turrets, find the kills here, but doesn't have to, because Faisal just keeps pushing. They've got Shelly as well here, and that will be at least a second charge here. Oh, never mind. They're not escorting Shelly. Rip Shelly.
That's still a big problem, though. The fact that mid tower falls, I thought it was going to be just a kill, and that was it. Not recognizing that the Rift Herald was up, but Rift Herald's dropped means mid tower goes down, and that makes it harder for the setup for these objectives to come through.
Now, I don't think here that we're going to see that catch repeatedly here. That was really quick burst and great corridor positioning. RBM recognizing that they were all funneled, and Infectrix, because of that solar flare, did not get Lamb's Respite down there. Theoretically, a lot of things had to come together to make that happen here. But if they can still line up that sort of corridor shot once again here, it's going to be really good. But it is an Infernal map, so it's a lot more space. The equalizers are going to have a harder time getting these perfect positionings down.
You know, a shadow nerf, let's call it, to somebody like RBM on the Rumble, who does want you to not have anywhere to go, wants to fight in these tight spots, and tight spots so much less frequent on the Infernal map because of the way that they open up around the buffs, and even around the Dragon. The map provides so much less restrictions for TSMA to be able to move around and find these creative angles into a team fight. When I say creative angles, though, I'm really looking at Eclipse. I've alluded to it before, but definitely Eclipse, Doxa are still my main people as we go into the fights. And right now, they're straight up engaging. Equalizer gets dropped to, I think, disengage or attempt to dissuade it, rather. But now with the Lamb's Respite down, all the damage is going to stick, and RBM ends up continuing with the kill here. Gorica does get one, does get extended. Eclipse, though, with a massive face breaker. It's going to change the course of the fight. Unfortunately, not in their favor, as Faisal finds an even bigger ult in the wall, and now gets to chase down Eclipse to his heart content.
Sweet, sweet vengeance here. And where is Gorica going? You're trying to fight Darkwings. You don't win this 1v1, and it is going to be an ace at the end of it. It looked for a second like there was hope for TSM Amateur in that turnaround. But the Lamb's Respite, I think, actually ended up helping AOE out a little bit more, because Fizzy, one more second, Fizzy was basically at no health whatsoever. And because the Lamb's Respite came down, saved them long enough, was able to continue pumping out all that CC, disrupting the entire fight from start to finish. And just the sustained damage coming out from Dark Wings and Sketch Dreams, somehow out-damaging double ADC, Kindred, and Jinx.
Let's talk for a little while about Faisal as well, because the Gnar was huge in that fight, almost actually bigger than Eclipse, as I was yelling about the set actually being able to find a massive face breaker. Well, Faisal was soloing everybody else with Gnarls.
Yeah, these top laners here, now that they're getting into the fight, they're doing a lot. And the one lane that is winning for TSM Amateur was TSM Eclipse in this top side with more gold. But that doesn't mean Faisal is down gold. Faisal is very, very rich as well, is tanky enough to get in there despite all the damage that was coming. I mean, there we go. Perfect toggle. Thank you, producer. Just under 8,000 here. And if you look across to the side of TSM Amateur, who's matching that? It's only Eclipse. It's only Infectrix. And despite the Kraken Slayer on Infectrix, it just wasn't enough to quickly take out Faisal.
No, I mean, to your point, the Lamb's Respite made that fight so chaotic in itself that your target acquisition after that has to be on point, and Faisal just isn't making the list. You want to take out Sketch Streams,
Yeah.
Darkwings, RBM, so much threat onto your backline is inherent in these high damage carries that Faisal kind of gets left by the wayside here, and this is the power of a composition that does want to dive on top of you, that does have all of these AOE, pun not intended, abilities to throw down, because you can't leave any of them alone, and that's what causes such a big problem, especially for teams that are trying to play disengage into all of that.
I don't think that's a pun, dude. I think that's a flat-out advertisement for this team. Like, they flat-out tell every team what they want to do. They want to go in. They want to get area of effect. And for the side of TSM Amateur right now, you can't play their game. You are a little bit behind here. Gorica needs the second item power spike, but AoE isn't giving them time. No vision right now. They're blind. They're clearing. By the time they get there, Baron's probably almost gone.
Farsight does spot the fact that the Baron is going down, though, but if Faisal catches Gorica, things are over. They're gnarled into the wall. Gorica almost goes down, and Sketch Streams finishes it off while Donbray gets left all alone in the field. Faisal going to be able to absorb one Orianna ult and walk his way out. It might have been a risky Baron play before, but now it's all but theirs.
I mean, Lamb's Respite is still up for Infectrix. You can cause problems here, but it needs to be Eclipse going in. And if I don't see Eclipse hitting up there, then it's a free Baron. And TP from Doxa down to... Okay, yeah, they gave it.
Yeah, this is a play to try and mitigate the damage from the Baron here. Knowing that you're going to give it up, you push the side lanes, you delay the amount of time that it takes for these minions to reach your base, and... From TSM, it is a lose the minimum play right now, and if they can hold out for long enough, it's going to pay off. It all depends on how AoE use this Baron.
And the last time, in game 1, AoE got Baron, and they cracked the base on that push. They went topside, they got it there. Frankly, they can just rinse and repeat at this point. Dragon coming up in 2 minutes. It's almost perfectly synced here with that Baron buff. Baron 2.5 minutes here in terms of what they have left. So I want to see them group up and just push this as 5, because you've got the Gnar, you've got the Equalizer, you've got Leona, and if you get a kill, Darkwings takes that body. There's a whole bunch of nice big team fighting tools on the other side. If you get Infectrix, if you get Gorica here, it's not quite the Runan's Hurricane, Kraken Slayer Jinx just yet, but Kraken Slayer alone, when you've got so much frontline for you, is going to be so nice to pick up.
Erda gets popped by RBM, zoning TSM and forcing them to group up, be ready for a team fight right now, with the Baron minions pushing them in the mid lane, and with Darkwings and Faisal both taking care of top lane, turrets are going to fall here, and it's a really nice play from AoE to make sure they get value out of the big purple form. Look at the jungle control, man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's exactly what you want to do. They deny the vision. You don't know where they're going to be. Now you see 4 mid, so what? You can't fight this. Where is Orianna? You sit in and draft here. The fact that the Orianna Shockwave had to be one of the big tools to deal with these team fights. If it's not there, you can't team fight. And now, mid's down. Doxa is not safe bot, and you have to kind of give that to Darkwings.
Big engage onto RBM, though. The Equalizer gets dropped, and he's still alive. The Lamb's Respite on his tower's way too early, and Fizzy gets to flash away while Sketch Streams commits 1v3, burns the Zanyas to stay alive. Faisal's in here with the Mega Gnar here, and he's going to threaten and take down Infectrix. Well, soon after him, Donbray is going to fall in the base. RBM finally pops the Zanyas that he saved from earlier to keep himself alive just long enough to let Darkwings and Faisal take on Doxa under the tower. The members of TSM are getting wiped off the rift while AoE secure another inhibitor.
That's a wrap. They have Baron here. They can't just push the end. It's 10 seconds for Gorica, and Gorica isn't going to be enough alone. But they just take the inhib. They decide to back off. Dragon's up in 5 seconds here, so they can always fall back to that. And while AoE might have been able to end there, they are going to play this methodically. TSM Amateur, once again, looking in very, very dire straits here. PD coming through from Gorica, so they were not going to see a huge spike in their team fighting prowess.
And they secure, maybe not the end of the game, the literal end, but the start of the beginning of it, because that's a terrible way to put that. Let me rephrase. There's a 10,000 gold lead right now, and TSM are going to have to bend over backwards to make this up. Well, AoE might not have literally won the game. They've won the game.
Yeah, I love the way you go from the beginning of the end, such a dramatic phrase, to bending over backward.
I said the beginning of the start at the end, and I was like, have you really just said that in the English language? And I had to rephrase because I can't let my persona become associated with such filth language.
No, it works perfectly fine. That's how this game started, right? TSM Amateur, nice and dramatic in the beginning, and then now we're at 25 minutes. It's looking kind of a bit of a very typical of NA, shall we say? Infectrix.
Oh man, yes, Infectrix, or rather, yes, RBM. That was a slaughter, but it is something that you knew was coming as soon as you saw RBM start to get kills under his belt. The Rumble now, oddly enough, is something that I didn't think would be a priority ban, but certainly is going to be from now on if you're facing up against this team.
Yeah, RBM making Rumble look as unbalanced as it looked in the beginning of MSI here. While everybody seems to have figured it out, RBM somehow still makes it look really strong. And I want to point out this sort of split push we're seeing, a 3-1-1 here. Because we've seen this all game long, and Darkwings has not been at the beginning of any fight. He's always come in to clean up. Equalizer coming out just to buy a bit more time, and it's distracted everybody from this bot side.
I mean, we talked about it before as well. Everybody just looks at Gorica, drops all of their cooldowns on him, and goes, enjoy not being able to play the game, Gorica. That's exactly what this composition does to a Jinx right now, and it's no surprise that TSM are struggling to be able to find a fight here when one of their carries grants everybody immortality and the other one can't play the game.
Oh man, that's rough. But you know what? I think it's good revenge from Faisal. They've already killed Eclipse, so that was part one of the revenge. Part two is making sure that somebody on the side of TSM Amateur feels the same way, that you don't get to play the game. And I'm actually pleasantly surprised from Faisal here. I know that I said I've not been particularly impressed, and it's not to say that I think Faisal hasn't been doing his job. And I'm so glad that this time they give Faisal a strong side champion. Granted, did get ganked really early, is very susceptible to ganks, but the strength that we saw before, where Faisal is really good at playing outside the lane, turns out Faisal is also very good at playing inside the lane if you can give him a favorable matchup, a good matchup. And right now, Faisal has in the last couple of fights kind of gone like 1v2, 1v3 at times, and has been key and crucial to how they've been winning these fights.
At the moment, I really like the way that he's been able to use the utility, not just on the Gnar, but you talked about it last game, the Sion, the Lee Sin yesterday, and really focusing on what he can put out in terms of crowd control and attention draw in the team fights is what makes him really valuable right now. And what is ostensibly going to make him valuable in 6 seconds when the Baron comes up and AOE take that and then try and translate that into the end of the game. Right now, though, is your probably best shot as TSM to try and take a team fight, and they're not ready for it.
No, Faisal is almost mega here. It's just waiting. Rocket comes out, but they don't care.
Oh my god! It's just Doxa being deleted here. Tunbray, unbreakable will my butt. That is breakable AF. It is a 10,000 gold leader more, and AOE can break anything they want.
I mean, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak here.
Yeah.
Definitely a broken body, though, and they're just going to push in right now. And I almost feel like, why was Doxa there if Infectrix isn't, right? Like, you're not going for the smite steal. You've just got 2 people there. Just send the rocket. I think that's fair. And now they're just padding KDAs.
Yeah, no point Crown ever spilled milk, though. Instead, Eclipse is going to start trying to make a play happen. Does, unfortunately, have to deal with 4 people, and without 2 of them on his own team, it's going to be a bit problematic. Busy displays the perfect aggression that we've seen from him the rest of the game, while Sketchstreams has to contend with a dive. Everybody takes care of him, and AOE once again get a clean team fight to close out the game, as we're not even going to see the Nexus fall because TSM give that one up for lost.
It is.